guys, what's going on? You are listening to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as we have sprung into spring finally here in Canada. I couldn't be happier. I'm joined by my good friend, compatriot, and podcast co-host,
Alex, the producer, and it's cold again today. It was hot yesterday, and now it's cold, and I don't like this.
Yeah, it was actually a really, really pleasant weekend here in Guelph, although on and off. It was really rainy and stormy on Saturday, and then on Sunday, it was a really nice day. It was really sunny. I actually managed to get outside for a couple of hours. So one of the things we often do off the top of the show is we kind of talk about our weeks and what's been kind of going on. And this week, I actually had a couple of really exceptional things happen. First things first, the Guelph Storm are now in the playoffs. We'll be playing the Sarnia Sting beginning next week. So look forward to lots of that. But the cool thing is I went to a viewing party for their last game of the year. We played the Saginaw Spirit, and we went to a local bowling alley. And the local bowling alley is called Woodlawn Bowl, which isn't... it's a good chunk from my house, but I went down there, and the big reason it's a huge deal for me is there is an arcade in there. So originally I thought I couldn't get into the arcade because of the weight limit on their lift. It wouldn't accommodate my wheelchair. Fortunately, we did find a way into the arcade. We just had to use a door that I don't think you're supposed to, but they kind of let us anyway. So I went in there. Gigantic arcade. Really, really good selection of games. Only downside, I might say, is that a lot of the games are sit-down cabinets, so you have to get in the games. There's a really cool Star Wars one. There's no way I'd be able to fit inside. I think it's called Star Wars Battle Pod. I'm going to have to look up some footage on that, but it looks utterly incredible.
Or in your case, it would be the Star Wars Death Trap. Yeah,
pretty much. So the one that I was really curious to play was Halo Fireteam Raven. And turns out I actually have a friend on my Facebook who actually worked on that game. So I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to try transferring from my wheelchair to get into it. Now, there was a bit of a fall risk, but I'm like, fuck it. It's Halo. I want to play this. I want this. So I was able to maneuver my way inside to this. Now, my stomach did get a little bit in the way, so hitting the upper part of the screen was a little bit hard. But I managed to get in there, and I played through the entirety of Halo Fireteam Raven with my other friend, Jordan, and Blair. That's right. Blair played a few levels. It was actually not a half bad shot. So we completed.
Well, I mean, it's a spray and pray game, right?
Yeah, but you still have to constantly reload and all that crap. Yeah. But it was a fucking blast to do that. I also looked at the Walking Dead game where you get like a crossbow. I don't know if I'd be able to get into that one because it's got a weird angle to it. There's this really awesome Space Invaders one, but I don't think the seats are wide enough for my butt. So, but yeah, there was just some incredible games I saw down there, and I'm just thinking, this is not cheap, some of these games. Like, they had Injustice Arcade. They had like some weird axe throwing thing. And a really cool thing is my friend Liam, who doesn't like to people so much, actually came out and hung out with us to watch the Storm game and to go see the arcade. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're planning on going back to go do some more stuff later on in the spring.
Well,
I'm actually going back.
Where you sit at the games, you're kind of away from people anyway, right?
Yeah, like I'm in the upper echelon VIP section, which is kind of nice.
So if you're not a person that likes to be around a lot of crowded people, it's a better spot to be in anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so like it was kind of impressive just to be there to see all these really cool things. So yeah, I'm looking forward to going back. We have another viewing party as we start game 1 on Friday evening in Sarnia. So yeah, that has been my week. Feeling pretty good about taking a risk outside my comfort zone. And speaking of that, one final point, I rode the conventional bus for the first time this week. So I took the regular city bus, started learning the city as I'm preparing for some consultations involving accessibility here, and I needed to know where I got to get to. So that was a different experience.
A way to test too, like you've got with an electric chair, it's a different wheelbase, right, than your manual. I don't know if the city buses are made for larger manual chairs, but I think you've already proven that your electric will be perfectly fine to get on and off, right?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a trick because they have to fold up the seats, which they have to anyway if somebody comes on with a wheelchair. But other than that, though, it was a fairly solid ride. There was one point where I'm a little like, I'm going to have to really hold on for dear life here because you're not strapped in, unlike the mobility bus.
Yeah, it depends on, it depends on how you position your chair, too.
Yeah, so I pretty much back myself in so I can grip something. Other than that, it was a fairly pleasant experience. So that is my week inside of a nutshell. What about you?
Well, it's been a real crappy weather week until the last 2 days or so where, it felt pretty good. What did we do? Did we hang out earlier this week?
I think so.
Was it this week we had our hangout? I think so. Yes, we must have. Let me double check. Talk about a blur. But we did a old school high school sleepover at the beginning of the week, and then once home, it was actually time for spring cleaning. So, it's like put it off long enough, and I'm like, so I'm doing the whole, what do I keep? Does this give me pleasure, or does this give me zen? And does this need to be out in the trash? So it's a bit of that for this week, but also catching up on stuff for review. I had a couple games that were longer to review, so it's been off and on doing RPGs and then some sports games, which will be probably on this show, as well as getting prepped and doing a lot of adulting stuff, like booking appointments for eyeglass doctor appointments. And then getting a call back from them to say, hey, that disability only covers it every 2 years. And then having to call them back, which I have to do again because I couldn't get through, to say, oh, by the way, I'm a diabetic, so now it's covered every year. That's sort of fun, ridiculous, stupid stuff, right, Michael? That, when they don't want to take you in as a customer because they don't think you can pay.
Yeah, it's finding an optometrist, dentist, any specialty service when you're disabled is a pain in the ass. I know when I had a dental problem a couple of years ago, it was a bit of a trick. And then on top of that, finding one who will accommodate my disability, that was fun.
Well, and on top of that, my optometrist retired a week after I had my last appointment. So it's this new doctor that's taken over, so that person doesn't know me. And I'm like, I don't like this. I fear change. I don't like this. I've had this previous optometrist since 1995. I don't like this. So it's a bit of that. Also, just some other doctory type adulting stuff and getting stuff prepped for mostly this week. I will be taking a few days to do some grandmother Oma babysitting because mom needs a respite from being full-time caretaker or caregiver, whatever. And it's just mostly, making sure she doesn't die, as elderly people with dementia tend to have happen when they're not being supervised. And we're trying to get her on a list to go into a long-term care facility, but it can take apparently like 6 months to a few years. And it's like, well, that doesn't help us now. So we're trying to do everything we can to make sure she's still comfortable and at the same time not drive ourselves crazy because, full-time caregiving is not easy. So I'll be spending the early part of this week after, not today we record, but tomorrow, the next day, and the day after, just sort of on that kind of duty. But at the same time, I'll be taking my mom to go see John Wick 4 because she loves those movies. And again, there's a bit of even if it's a few hours, it's a bit of a vacation for her. So we're doing that. As far as anything more and exciting, these few months and the last few weeks are more of the not much updates from Alex because it's just more of the bored, doldrum, day-to-day adulting life stuff that's been going on. Nothing as exciting as hockey and all that stuff, except that when I visited you, I got to play with the kiddies, and I was very happy.
Good times.
I was extremely happy. Only thing is, they're little hellions. They like to eat my toes, and they try to eat all my power cables, and I'm like, Blair, come get your babies. They're trying to kill me with electricity.
Yeah, they actually tried to get in the way of one of my like big Transformers, which you'll hear that review probably in the next week or so. I reviewed the Transformers Guardian Robot, which is the Omega Supreme Deco, and we got him in a certain place. And Dutch keeps trying to jump up and nibble on his claws. So that's a pain in the butt.
Well, they're so full of love, but they're so full of life that they're trying to eat everything still. It's like, grow up, kiddies, but also don't grow up.
Yeah, like, I love you, but can you just not go here? And we've put all this junk in the way, and they're still getting up there. So we're going to have to figure something out for that.
You know, there's two types of cats when they're babies. They either love cables or they don't. Usually when they get past like 9 months, they'll stop nibbling cables. And if they don't, you might have to start doing the whole spraying, smelly crap on the cables to make them not want to.
Yeah, so it's just, ugh. But anyway,
and honestly, it wasn't the cables that bothered me. It was my CPAP machine, to help me breathe while I sleep, right? I had it all hooked up, and I'm like, what are you doing? No, don't puncture the tubing.
But they've learned not to do that with like me and Blair, but they like to swat at our masks.
Well, this was the thing. Blair goes, why is he doing it to your stuff? They don't do it to ours. And she's like, you dumb kiddies, they're the same damn tubes. and they're like, no, they're Uncle Alex's tubes. They're different. And it's like, you can't stay mad at you, but stay away from me. And then you leave the room. I left the room to go use the washroom, and they're looking at me outside the door like, why did you kick us out? And it's like you tricked me with your cute eyes.
It's true. My cats are incredibly cute. They will do whatever they can to get in your way, but that's how they roll.
Just wait, dude, till they're old enough to be like Wiley was, and they start stealing all your bread.
Yeah, looking forward to that. However, though, we have to talk about the show that is going to be upcoming here on this week's podcast. We got a lot of stuff to cover from the entertainment industry. Of course, the stuff that happened around the worldwide world of weird. And we have reviews. I got a review coming up of a game that was only exclusive to the Wii and Japan. I'm going to be talking about the PS5 port of Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse on the PlayStation 5. And Alex, what are we going to be looking at from you?
As long as I'm able to record everything properly, it's going to be MLB The Show, as well as Atelier Ryza 3. I've got a few other things on the go. I just got to double check to make sure when I can release the reviews, and if not this week, they'll be next week.
All right, then. All right, guys, so we will be back right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's been Alex the producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Our friends over at Sony's San Diego studio sent review copies of MLB The Show 23 for both PS4/PS5 as a dual redemption code, and Xbox, which is a dual generation redemption code. And I had a chance to sit down over the last little bit and check out sort of most versions. Obviously, I can't vouch for like the original PlayStation 4 or original Xbox platforms because I don't have them anymore, and actually nobody on our team I think has an active console of those. But I was able to check out the PS4 version on the PS5 as well as the PS5 version on the PS5, and I was able to briefly check out the Xbox Series X version on the Series X and the Series S variant, which is what you'd expect, mostly just a slight downgrade as far as the visuals are concerned, but performance is pretty much on par. As far as we've reviewed these in the past several years. This is in the technical aspects, they've made some changes to hitting, to pitching, especially when playing online competitively. There's a little more nuance to it. You're less likely to playing online. It's pretty easy to hit pretty much everything that came at your way. They've made it a little more challenging, a little more nuanced. As far as playing, the regular single player game, again, this is one of those releases where it's more nuanced changes. It appears to be performing better on the Xbox than it did in the previous year, because this is now, I believe, the second year that we've seen cross-platform versions, because previously this had been a PlayStation exclusive for, better part of 2 decades. And they've worked out any kinks that were there. It seems like, at least to my naked eye, parity between the Xbox and PlayStation versions. The only difference being that I still prefer playing it on PlayStation, not because of any brand loyalty or anything, just that you get the adaptive triggers. It's a better controller experience when playing it on PlayStation 5 than on any other platform. Audio-wise, it's still top-notch. It's still, the best baseball simulator on the planet, because it's pretty much the only game in town nowadays, especially when it has this kind of money and budget put into it. The most interesting thing that I'm going to briefly talk about, because this is a pretty quick review, it's a solid upgrade from last year. It's a solid move forward. In the file size of the game is slightly shrunk down. It's around the 60 gig mark. I think it was a little more than that before, so they're getting efficiencies out of it. Load times appear to be better on both platforms than they were last year. But the big feature that's been added is the addition of the Negro League, which is something I didn't think it's a word I don't think I would normally say in reviews, but the Negro League's Baseball Museum has worked out a deal with the team to introduce the Negro League Season 1, which is you can play as and celebrate the careers of 8 people that were integral to the Negro League's baseball, including Satchel Paige, Jackie Robinson, Hank Thompson, and obviously Jackie Robinson being the biggest name. Even if you're not a fan of baseball, you know the name, and you get that's sort of like, how the games have different sports games. They'll have like a career mode or a special mode where you play through historic events. Well, that's what they've got here with the Negro League, which is actually really cool, and it's a really good, important part of the sport history to be included. So I'm happy that it's included here, and it's very well tastefully done. There's nothing, I would say, made to be disrespectful or hokey. It's very well put together, and that alone is a reason to play it. If you're a fan of baseball games, you've already probably got this picked up, or you're probably looking to pick it up. If you're somebody who's been on the fence, or you're somebody who hasn't had a PlayStation and you got an Xbox and you're looking to maybe get into it, this is a good launching point, because it does have that really cool mode included. Outside of that, it's gotten a little easier to play, in that it teeters the balance between full blown like simulation difficulty curve, and then also having a ton of customizability. You can tweak the rules for everything. You can tweak the baseball rules, you can tweak the game rules, you can tweak the difficulty levels to make everything as easy as you need it to be. Like, if you just want to have a breezy game, you can totally do that here. So they've really embraced the accessibility that I've been hoping for a lot of sports games in recent years. So it's worth checking out for sure.
The Prime Minister of Sweden visited Washington today, and my tiny little nipples went to France.
Gossip, rumors, panic in the streets. We're lucky.
This Week in Geek
News.
Hey guys, welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's Alex Producer, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about this week. And, well, some sad news, because by the time you will hear this, maybe not, I hope you downloaded all those Nintendo 3DS titles that you've ever wanted to get, and Wii U titles, because they're gone. But one person and their team decided to preserve everything. Gerard the Completionist. But this story comes courtesy of Kotaku.com. YouTuber buys every single video game on the Wii U and 3DS eShops before they close. Nintendo's decision to close both the Wii U and 3DS shops might make commercial sense for the company, but fans and lovers of video game history, it's a disaster, as it's feared many of the games being removed may well disappear and may never be seen or made available ever again. Loads of these games are tiny indie titles that probably haven't been purchased or heard from in years, but that doesn't mean they're not worth preserving. And besides some of the games disappearing are big important releases, such as The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, for example, prestigious winner of my favorite video game of all time, will no longer be legally and commercially available once the Wii U eShop shuts down. In an effort to address this, at least address it in a single place as few consoles as possible, a YouTuber, The Completionist, decided to sit down and spend almost a year of his life, 328 days in total, buying his way through both libraries. He's now done it, and the stats are staggering. The dude bought 866 Wii U games, 1,547 3DS titles, and those numbers include DSiWare, virtual console releases, and downloadable content. That adds up to 1.2 terabytes of data for the Wii U and 267 gigabytes for the 3DS. And for the 3DS purist reading, that's 2,137,689 blocks. Over 460 eShop cards were used during the purchases, and in total spent a whopping $22,791. And then they kind of talk about the video, which I did watch.
And I went into it too, and
the fact that the cards got flagged by the bank so many times is actually kind of funny.
Well, that can happen because it looks like you're
fraud. Do
you remember the 2007, 2008 PlayStation Network frauds that were happening?
I do.
Where people would, it was mostly Russian scammers. They would buy a shit ton of PlayStation Network cards, hack somebody's PlayStation Network account, apply a credit card to it, or use the person's credit card to rack up a crap ton of purchases, and then they would sell it on the gray marketplace where they're like, here, buy this PlayStation account for $25 and it has $1,000 worth of store credit.
Didn't we know someone who had this, or at least we knew someone through like a friend of a friend?
Me,
yeah.
Back in the day when we didn't know what it was like gray market, not to that extent, but it was like we thought we were buying PlayStation Network, like we thought we were buying PSN cards. You know, like how you can buy like gift cards online.
Yeah.
And then we bought a couple gift cards, or we thought were gift cards, and then what we were sent was, here's the login info for the account with the cards on it.
Oh.
And we're like, what? And it's like, that's what turns out, we were not in trouble, but we were embroiled in that whole thing. And that's what we had to look up and go, what the hell is that?
Oh, and wow. That's crazy.
And then it was like a month or two later that it all came down that it was Russian people hacking into accounts. Because that's before they implemented two-factor authentication.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
And that was when, do you remember when they were hacked and it turned out that every single user's password was stored in a text document that wasn't encrypted?
Yep.
And I mean, this is early PlayStation. This is like, it's not like Microsoft where they had already had, online accounts and stuff for like 10 years. This was, early for them. But it was, something that they would never repeat again, obviously. But still, like that was that time period, and that's why they implemented changes where I think the Sony account limits like $500 you can have on your of store credit. Mm-hmm. Basically, you can't have more store credit than it costs to buy like a console.
Yeah, I know
at any given time.
I know while watching the video with Gerard, Nintendo had a limit of $250 per transaction.
Which is way too low.
Yeah, and they had to call Nintendo multiple times because their accounts kept getting locked out. And they wanted to lock it to one account, so this account will always have these games on it. And their account got flagged so many times. There's a really interesting video on it.
And you know how useless that is? Because it's not... It's not even attached to an account. It's attached to the consoles.
Yeah.
Like remember, this is not the same as the Nintendo account we currently have. When they went with the Switch, the reason everybody complained, remember where they're like, you need to merge your accounts or whatever. That was that bullshit. Or the merging of the accounts, all it did was transfer over your purchase information, and your Mii's and all that. The reason for that was they were so backwards that there was no such thing as a Nintendo account where it stored your user information and had your purchase history. everything was tied to the console serial number that you purchased the games on. That is why you could not own 2 3DSs and have the same games on both. Because you were only allowed to have one primary account. You couldn't have it download onto 2. It was bullshit. And it was still, like, they were so backwards, and they're still backwards now.
Yeah.
But the difference is now, whenever the next generation Switch comes out, or whatever the next system's going to be, presumably, and they fucking better do this, it's going to use the same Nintendo account.
Yeah, like,
because if they don't, they're gonna, like, people are like, oh well, Nintendo can't, they've got such a big market. They will lose the 100 million install base if people find out that not only can they not play their previous games, but their account information doesn't pass over and their game saves and stuff. People will be very mad.
Yeah, I'd be plenty pissed about that. I know,
because they're basically, right now, the Nintendo Switch accounts are using technology from 2006. And before that, they were using whatever bullshit from before that. Like, so this is a similar situation where $250, and remember, you can only buy one game at a time. It's not like PlayStation, where you can add, I think it's 10 items to a cart before you have to check out, which still I thought was kind of arbitrary, but I get it was because that was limited based on the PlayStation 3, having a ton of memory and everything. But also remember, unlike with the Switch now, where you can go to the Nintendo website and you can purchase through a web browser, where it'll be a lot quicker than trying to load the games through, like, go to each individual game through the store itself. You can't purchase the games on the web store for the 3DS or the Wii U because it's tied to that console. You have to do it through the console, which is really dumb.
One of the other things they kind of did while all this was happening, because as you mentioned, they wanted to tie it to one console. I think it took 4 separate hard drives, because the Wii U had a limit on what you could use for hard drives. They had to use so many memory cards for the 3DS.
While it supported up to 2 terabyte drives, you could only have like 200 items installed at a time.
Yes, and because the Wii U can only display so many icons, you're limited to 300 per screen. It gets a little bit, and that doesn't matter if you make subfolders. Just that's the limit. Like I say, if you,
Nintendo is great at making games. They're great at utilizing the hardware that's off the shelf. Like, they're great at innovating the controls and everything. Nintendo has traditionally been very bad at system software and infrastructure. They're not great at online, and they're like really not like if it's anything to do with something that isn't actual software that's customer facing, they're not very good. And they won't admit that, but that's industry wide known. And that's like, it's the same reason, Michael, like, how we have the themes option in the Switch, and there's only 2 themes, they've never made any more. Or how about this? There's the USB 3 port on the Nintendo Switch dock only works in USB 2 mode because they never worked out a way to make the firmware work.
It's so disappointing.
We're 7 years in, and they never updated it. And then when they brought out the OLED Switch, which I have, and I have the new dock, and it has built-in, Ethernet, and it has the ports. It even has a thing inside the system software that says update dock. Not a single firmware in over a year and a half. It's like they only release firmware updates for anything when they get hacked. They're not very proactive. So I can see why Gerard had so much trouble trying to get, like, I would have driven myself insane if my account was getting locked every 24 hours because I was putting too much money on there that they don't want, apparently.
And it was weird too, because one of the weird little wrinkles is that certain games won't let you purchase the DLC until you're at a certain point. Like some of the Fire Emblem games.
You have to beat the game to unlock the store?
Yep. Certain things. Like, I know he quoted the Fire Emblem game and some other, I think the Final Fantasy dancing game has some weird shit too.
And you know what? I can understand from a certain standpoint where it's like, not that... I can understand if they don't want to advertise to kids, hey, buy more now. And I do like that idea. But you should know what? the fact that they're requiring that you beat the game before you even give them more money, weren't they shooting themselves in the foot in the first place? Like, people might not even realize they could get more out of the game if they didn't beat it all the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so strange. And when you have to get like getting DLC on the 3DS is a nightmare as well. Like,
But you remember how long it took to install, and it's using like wireless N or whatever. It's not even AC, so like you're limited to like 1 megabyte per second. And
yeah,
some
like,
of the larger games are like actually, I don't even think it got 1 megabyte per second because of how slow the network card in there is. So like you could download like a 200 or 300 megabyte game. I think that was the max. It was like 256 or something, but it would still take like 10 minutes. Whereas we're like 10, 15 minutes, and you'd see like it would feel like it was crashing or didn't finish, and then you think like, then you got to get each individual DLC piece one at a time. You can't just pay for all the DLC and download it all at once. You have to select each item and install each one at a time. I see that, and then my Xbox and my PlayStation are laughing.
Yeah, like there's a part in the video where he details how he had to organize file folders to download stuff because memory cards on the 3DS were kind of weird too.
Oh yeah,
I do not envy this man for what they went through.
The only thing that he can pray, he didn't mention it in the video, but I felt he should have praised that at the very least it didn't require proprietary memory cards.
Yeah, so
because could you imagine having to buy actually he might, now that we know that the Vita and PS3 stores are eventually shutting down, you imagine how much trouble he's going to have to download every single Vita title legally using the memory cards that you could get that had a maximum of, I think, 32 gigs on there. Maybe even, I think 16 was the max normal. He's going to have to like mod his systems just to use SD cards to download games.
Yeah, like it's insane, but I'm glad that this project happened. I'm glad that they've been donated to like a video game museum for preservation.
So somebody is gonna like be working that was an indie guy in like Japan or Indonesia or someplace that made a game that hasn't had a sale on the 3DS for like 7 years, is gonna wake up and be like, "What? I made $3? What the what the hell?" Right? There's gonna be a lot of people like, "What? I got a check from Nintendo?"
And some people slashed their games to fire sale prices to make sure people could go out and buy these games. Some publishers didn't. So hopefully, depending on when this episode goes out, download now. I think it closes on Tuesday the 28th. So do what you can.
Well, let's be real. I think anybody that has the console that wants to, they're already done.
Yeah, I might boot mine up and just maybe go through the virtual console one last time.
Oh, your 3DS, you mean?
Yeah, I might just give it a whirl. I'm actually really sad I sold my like 3D or my Wii U because I had a lot of digital games on there.
I think, and it's not something that Nintendo probably likes to hear. I think 95% of people that have a Wii U have already like jailbroken it and have just downloaded all the games they wanted to install or own all the physical games they want to own. I don't know how much of the Wii U, like pure Wii U digital titles, people even really wanted in the first place. There was a lot of shovelware carryovers or weird titles that were not really unique. Like there's some that are obviously unique to it, but you know, anything that's first party, anything that had even remotely a like cult following has either ported to the Switch or probably will.
There was one title that, because the Wii U supported the old Wii's shop, there were certain titles that are lost forever, such as there was like a Castlevania game that was only exclusive to the Wii.
Yeah.
There was Doc something's Punch Out, which was a Nintendo exclusive download.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And there's like, wasn't there a Dr. Mario one or something too?
Yeah. So there's all these really weird ones that are just gone. And
you know what? And it's and until Nintendo ports them over, they're gonna live probably forever with like Internet Archive and archivist people jailbreaking their systems to make sure they have a copy working. And if they don't like it, it's like, if you're not providing updated support for it, or if you never provided a physical copy, this is, you're breeding the need for that community. You're shooting yourself in the foot. So I feel these aren't going to be lost forever. It's not like we're going to lose the code permanently. You're going to lose the ability to buy certain things. But also, one thing to consider, we've seen news stories in the last few weeks about Wii U's just dying because they have really cheap NAND flash implementations.
Mm-hmm.
Where the system software is getting corrupt. People that have it on their shelf, that if it's not turned on frequently, that just leaving it on the shelf will kill it, which is not something that ever happened to previous systems. And it's only because they cheaped out on the flash memory they used. So it's like Nintendo, like even if you did purchase all this stuff, like and Gerard has all that, all the stuff paid for and downloaded, they're going to have to turn it on like once a week or once a month for the rest of all time. Otherwise, they risk losing the data.
Yeah, hopefully they'll find a way to at least clone the data or make sure that it never, I don't know.
Yeah,
stuff that's beyond my pay grades.
Which is, there's ways to get around, but it's like there's the funny thing about that is we don't hear about that trouble with the DS Lite. Like there are people that haven't turned on their DS Lite in 10 years and they plug it in, it's still got like 10-15% battery life and it's working.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to find my 3DS probably at the end of this podcast. I think I know where it is. I'll have to look it up. And I did put the extended battery in it, so hopefully we'll see.
Oh yeah. That's the thing that's a lost art now, is having the ability to put in a larger battery if need be.
Mm-hmm. All right, so moving on to our next story. This story comes courtesy of Kotaku. Now, normally we don't share this type of news, but the tea was just too good on this one. Jake Paul, Lindsay Lohan, and more charged with, quote, illegally shilling cryptocurrency. The Securities and Exchange Commission sent out a press release last week, saying that crypto entrepreneur Justin Sun is being charged with fraud over his manipulation over the crypto market. That's great news, but also of interest is the fact that a wide range of celebrities were also charged along with him. Sun, alongside three of his companies, the Tron Foundation Limited, BitTorrent Foundation, and Rainberry Inc., are accused of selling crypto through extremely shady MLM-like promotional deals, none of which were registered, and which as a result violate the Securities Act. He's then accused of violating the, quote, anti-fraud and market manipulation provisions of federal securities laws by, quote, orchestrating a scheme to artificially inflate the apparent trading volume of his own cryptocurrency. And then I'm going to get really technical and then I'll shut up. The SEC's complaint filed in the U.S. District Court of Southern District of New York alleges that Sun and his companies offered and sold TRX and BTT as investments through multiple unregistered, quote, bounty programs, which directed interested parties to promote the tokens on social media, join and recruit others to Tron-affiliated Telegram and Discord channels, create BitTorrent accounts in exchange for TRX and BTT distributions. The complaint further alleges that Sun, BitTorrent Foundations, and Rainberry offered and sold BTT in an unregistered monthly airdrops to investors, including in the United States, who purchased and held TRX in Tron wallets or upon participating in crypto asset trading platforms. According to the complaint, each of these unregistered offers and sales violates Section 5 of the Securities Act. The commission also alleges that Sun violated the anti-fraud and market manipulation provisions of the federal securities laws by orchestrating a scheme to artificially inflate the apparent trading volume of TRX in the secondary market. From at least April 2018 through February 2019, Sun allegedly directed his employees to engage more than 600,000 wash trades of TRX between two cryptocurrency asset trade platforms accounts he had controlled, and between 4.5 and 7.4 million TRX cash was traded daily. This scheme required a significant amount of TRX, which Sun allegedly provided. As alleged, Sun also sold TRX into the secondary market, generating proceeds of $31 million from illegal unregistered offers and sales of the token, all of which is bad. But alongside Sun, the SEC also charged a number of people he hired to promote his crypto scam, alleging they had been, quote, illegally touting the currency without disclosing they were being compensated for doing so. Also bad, the 8 celebrities named are Lindsay Lohan, Jake Paul, Soulja Boy, Austin Mahone, Kendra Lust, Little Yachty, Neo, Akon. If you're wondering about the potential punishments,
all people known for being upstanding citizens and not having any trouble with scams in the past.
this is true. If you're wondering about the potential punishments for any of these sneaky salespeople, the SEC says that everyone except Soulja Boy and Austin Mahone have, quote, agreed to pay more than $400,000 in disengorgement, disinterest, and penalties to settle the charges without admitting or denying the SEC findings.
Disengorgement sounds like something you'd hear from like the Horde in World of Warcraft. He's been disengorged.
It's insane. Just cryptocurrency.
Okay, so from what I heard you saying, and I might be wrong, but at least my interpretation was the biggest issue outside of not having the transactions registered with regulators, it was that he was using large amounts of his own currency of that type of those currency tokens and having people do large trades with them to make it look like to investors that large trading was happening, when in reality he was literally reaching into his right pocket, trading into his left pocket with two companies that he owned that he didn't disclose were both owned by him. Which is super illegal because it makes it look like a company is doing better than it really is. And then on top of that, paying people to promote the product without doing what you have to do. Like when you see a YouTube video, like ours don't pop up. Like, you know, when you do audio podcasts, if you like when we were doing our audio podcast and I get things ready to post, there's an option for a button that I can click saying, this podcast contains paid promotional content, and even though we do reviews, none of our reviews are ever paid.
Nope.
So
I've never received a red cent.
So all we have to, that's why we'll say, our friends at so and so sent us a review copy. We have to mention that. The only time that we don't is like if we just pick up a game ourselves. Like if I pick up a Square Enix title that I didn't get for review and I just talk about Octopath 2 or I did that or something else, and if it's something I bought myself, I don't have to say anything. It's, just review it. But if it's something we get for review, you have to mention, hey, I was provided a review copy. That's why you'll hear people say that. If you're paid for something, you have to select the button either in the audio podcast for when it goes out. You don't usually need to do that for audio in general, but you have to mention it. But because our platform also sends it out to YouTube, a little thing will pop up on YouTube automatically that says this video contains paid product promotion or whatever. They have to do that. If they don't have that there, they have to verbally and visually mention and show that they are sponsored by them or that this is a paid promotional segment. And they were basically either told not to do that or just didn't do it. And it sounds like if every single person that is listed there didn't do it, they were told not to. Which is super illegal.
Yeah, like this whole cryptocurrency thing, I've had people like, I think the entire idea of crypto and NFTs, I know some people who have made money. In fact, there was one guy I went to college with. He forgot he had a Bitcoin and he made like $100,000 or something. And he's like, that's cool. I'm done now. And he left.
If you were in on it before
the bros were in on it, I guess.
It's bros. I don't even like that term. If you were in it before people knew it could be used to make money, that's a different story. Or if you're using using it for as a currency or a secondary form of currency within a country or a network of countries that have been traditionally almost failed states. Like it's happening in a lot of African countries where they end up using crypto as a means of getting products and stuff because their own currency has failed because their government hasn't had any proper regulations. You've heard of this probably in the past where like certain African countries, the money is not worth anything because of the gangs and like the drug lords that basically rule everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's
considered a unstable currency or something like that.
Yeah. The currency is unstable. It's almost a failed state. Nobody can accept the money. Nobody wants to carry cash. So they ended up using phone calling cards And like where we don't really have those here anymore, but you remember you buy like 100 minutes or 1,000
Oh, yeah.
minutes of calling cards for your
Yeah.
cell phones, and they use them not just for their phone currency, but how the phone companies in some of those countries have actually helped, because you can use the phone to purchase groceries and certain stuff using the minutes.
Yeah, and like
And,
because
that's how they've gotten around their money being a failed state.
and like I watch a lot of scam bait channels. Like I watch Pierogi from Scammer Payback. I watch the guys from Trilogy Media, both of which are fantastic
And what's
channels.
the dude that makes like the stink box thing, the iPod box, where
Mark Rober, yeah.
yeah, and some of those things are really good. Some of those things are dangerous when they do the scamming things. But like that's the idea, is in those countries where they've used phone cards or alternate means of currency, that's where crypto can actually help. If they have access to a computer, if they have again, it all depends on how stable their access is to the internet. If they have that, you can use that as a stable currency while your government's currency is maybe on the rocks. But outside of that, it is. Do you remember the story about the dude that used? Didn't he sell like a couple Bitcoin for a pizza, and it turns out he bought like a $300,000 pizza because he didn't know what it was worth.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that. Yeah. I mean, like the whole crypto and NFT, the entire crypto market, I think is stupid. One, I don't totally get it.
Crypto
Two,
has interesting
Potential.
possibilities from a scientific and philosophical background. NFTs are just there to bilk stupid people, to truly get the ignorant to invest in something that's worthless. Truly, there is nothing that NFTs are good for, and yet big corporations are all in on it because they are hoping that their customers are stupid enough to get it. And I know you see a lot of YouTubers coming out and talking like, oh, I don't want to talk down to people that are buying it. It's like, no, there is a point where you're going to have to say stop. It's a stupid investment.
Yeah. So hopefully we will see something happen with these charges other than just $400,000.
You think Soulja Boy is going to fight it because he thinks that his Soulja console is gonna pay for it?
Soulja Boy, tell him. And finally, our last story this week, we're going to end on a hopefully more positive note. This is something.
Sorry, but if Soulja Boy thought he could take on Nintendo, does he really think he can take on the Federal Securities Commissions? And
you're not fighting the SEC.
It's like the because you know what the very next call is going to be. The IRS is going to be like, "Are you going to report that income you made from all your fake console sales?"
Yep. All right.
He's not a very bright person.
No. All right, so this last story comes to us courtesy of superherohype.com, though you can find this trailer everywhere. Heroes reunite in Power Rangers once and always. In 1993, 5 teenagers with attitude became the first generation of Power Rangers. 3 decades have passed since then, but it's almost time for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers to reunite for their 30th anniversary. Netflix has released a new trailer for Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Once and Always, and it reveals how and why former members of the team have come back together. Original cast members David Yost and Walter Jones headline the specials as Billy Cranston and Zach Taylor, and it appears that Zach is taking the leadership role here. The trailer also reveals that their original enemy, Rita Repulsa, is back in a new mechanical body, presumably from the Machine Empire from the Power Rangers Zeo era. Rita may also have been responsible for the death of Trini Kwan, the original Yellow Ranger, played by the late Thuy Trang. Although Rita was once thought to be redeemed, she's back up to her old tricks, and she has a plan to eliminate the Rangers by going back in time before they ever receive powers from Zordon. This is a threat that needs a full set of Rangers as well as their original Zords. Catherine Sutherland is also reprising her role as Catherine Cat Hillard, the second Pink Ranger, alongside Steve Cardenas as the second Red Ranger, Rocky DeSantos, and John Young Bosch as Adam Park, the second Black Ranger. Presumably, Trini's daughter, Ming, Charlie Kirsch, will take on the Yellow Ranger role for this adventure. Additionally, Barbara Goodson and Richard Stephen Horvitz are reprising their roles as the voices of Rita and Alpha 5, respectively.
Is that second Alpha 5 where second Alpha sounded weird?
I want to say so. I think that's the Alpha from Turbo Forward.
Yeah, because when I heard the voice, I was like, that doesn't sound like Alpha. And I know people age, but then I remembered there were 2 Alpha voices.
Yeah, there was Alpha 5 and then there was Alpha 6 or something. I don't know. I kind of tuned out when like Zeo came on.
There was, you remember when Rita came back and sounded different? It's like that. This sounds like the original Rita.
I'm pretty sure it is. Now, unfortunately, the actor who played Lord Zed has since passed away. Zordon is dead in canon, but because they're going back in time,
not when they go back in time though, right? So who knows?
Yeah.
When I saw the trailer, I ended up downloading a copy of it and then applying a bunch of filters to it to make it look like Power Rangers from the 90s, because I don't like how Rangers has gotten this like bubblegum, super shiny soap opera Korean K-pop look to it. It looks like a home video, not something Netflix paid like $1 million to make. You know what I mean?
Now,
and again, that's an aesthetic thing. That's something that bothers me. But I know it's Power Rangers, so people are just happy to see anything. It looks cheap.
I don't know. I'm not big on the costume for Robo Rita. Everything else looks pretty good from what I've seen. Like I've been following a lot of the behind the scenes stuff for this for quite some time.
Yeah, there's people that are not returning, and they have their own reasons. And it's like, you know what? If you only had to be in it for 10 minutes and you're not returning, it's not necessarily for money. A lot of it could be
scheduling.
And I don't think like people that had issues with Haim Saban, he's not involved anymore. Right, so it's not like that's a holdup, because otherwise Billy wouldn't be in it, right?
Yeah,
because like his big stink was he really had serious issues with Haim, and if Haim's not involved and he's back, and people come back, I have a feeling script's not good. It doesn't mean I'm not going to watch it and not going to enjoy it. I just have a feeling it's not going to be good, and I also have a feeling that super fans are going to be like making up excuses for it. And it's like, it's Power Rangers, so it's supposed to be silly and dumb. I just hope it's not terrible.
I mean, I think, because I know one of the people who's not involved is Amy Jo Johnson, who's the original Pink Ranger. And she said on Twitter a couple of days ago, she's like, look, long story short, I didn't want to wear spandex in my 50s. I couldn't take off to New Zealand for a month, and it's none of your business. Here's what I would have proposed. They could have filmed scenes with her over here. Don't make her morph. And how they could have explained it in universe, if they really wanted to, is I have a family now. I'm not doing it because that'll put a target on my back.
And I know that JDF didn't do it, and it's people are upset. They're like, oh, he should have done it because he passed away afterwards. It's like, no, if he didn't
film beforehand,
the fact that he didn't do it says something about not liking the script.
Yeah.
And I mean, Amy Jo is a director now. I think her most recently she directed an episode or two of Superman and Lois for the CW. So she's like, and she's done a couple feature-length films before the pandemic hit. So like, she's settled into living in Toronto and basically just doing Canadian TV and movies.
Yeah, like she can do whatever she wants. She's earned that right.
She's in her 50s. She doesn't feel comfortable about being, like she said, in spandex and all that. Maybe they should have asked her to direct it.
That would have been awesome.
Even if she wasn't going to be in it, people wouldn't have complained as much because she could do it. Now, the other thing that how I would have done it if she didn't want to actually fly over there and they wanted to work it into the script and it's about Rita going back in time and killing him, it could have started with like Billy and Zach's character, like just like they're there, they meet up and they're like, hey, look who it is, and they do like they have their phones out and they're doing like a chat with Kimberly, and they're out having lunch and they're like, hey, look who it is, look who I bumped into, and they pull up their phone and they're talking, and then she just disappears and it starts to do like the Back to the Future thing where she was like erased from time.
Yeah, that's simple.
You could have done that even with JDF. Like you could have had or if JDF didn't want to do it, she could have done that and they could have just erased her. And the reason she's not in the movie is they have to go back in time and stop them all from being killed.
Now, supposedly, like from the trailer, there is a Green Ranger in it, but they probably never take off their helmet. My guess is Rita imprisons them or something, kind of like how you're suggesting the whole erase from time bit.
I hope they don't. they don't have the budget to do a Forrest Gump and insert them into old footage.
No.
So I really hope they're not disrespectful by using a lot of old footage of people that are no longer with us.
I mean, I'd be okay if it's like a flashback scene. That's fine.
Yeah, but if a lot of time is spent showing JDF on screen in past footage, it's kind of disrespectful.
Yeah.
So I'm also one, and again, I'm not, take everything I'm saying with a grain of salt because I like to read into things. I'm also kind of wondering, did she turn it down because it just looked hokey, and did he turn it down because they only wanted him to say like one line or something? You know what I mean? Like, it seems on for JDF to have turned it down because he never turned down anything. Like, there had to be some very, very serious reason as to why he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me much more than her not wanting to.
Mm-hmm.
She like because people forget, like, almost everybody in Power Rangers, with the exception of like Johnny Young Bosch, like Johnny Young Bosch has had a pretty sustained, like, top tier career as a voice actor, right? Like, pretty much. And I'm trying to think of anybody else, right? Everybody else's career went into the shitter outside of, like, JDF basically stayed on as doing Power Rangers for the rest of his life, and it didn't really do much else. But Amy Jo Johnson is the only one that got out. People don't forget, after Power Rangers ended, she did a couple Disney movies in the
Felicity.
90s. And she had 4 years on Felicity, and then 5 years or 6 years on Flashpoint as a second lead on both of those shows. So she had a 20 year career in television and movies and directing after nobody else did. So it's not really a surprise that she's like, I'm past that. I love the fans, but I'm past it. But like, it's much more surprising that JDF didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I have asked to access this early. If I do get it, I won't be able to say anything. But
is it 20 minutes long? Like, have they said how long the special is going to be?
I think it's an hour. So
okay, so we'll see. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see if they have any other people do pop up cameos in it. It would be funny if some people that were behind the costumes and stuff, or people that did some of the voices of, not the costumes, but like did the voices of the people show up. Like, I know Bryan Cranston is not going to show up in it, but it would be funny if, because, some of the people that voiced some of the monsters, ended up being, fairly famous people later on.
Mm-hmm. So you can look for that on Netflix. I want to say on April 19th, I want to say. So again, if you want to check out the trailer, go on YouTube, go on Twitter. It's not hard to find.
All I hope from it, more than anything, it can be a terrible, ridiculous thing that we can talk about to the end of time. I just really hope that when they go back in time and they have the putties, they're doing the ridiculous sounds.
Oh yeah. I expect weirdness. I want a really good Zord battle. I think it's going to be fun. So anyway, guys, we're going to take another break here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. We're going to check out one of the reviews. I don't know which one's going here right now because reasons. So anyway, guys, we will be right back here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's been Alice Producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
This is a fair request, and I promise I will not judge any person only as a teenager, and that this is no more right than saying all teenagers are drunken dope addicts or glue sniffers.
Hey guys, this is Mike the Birdman here. I'm here to talk to you about a game that we got for review from our friends over at Koei Tecmo. I'm talking about Fatal Frame Mask of the Lunar Eclipse on the PlayStation 5, although you can get this for pretty much any platform right now. So let's jump right into it. So this is a release of a game that was exclusive to the Wii that has been brought over to North America for the first time with a full North American release, including basically everything's been translated. It's been updated with HD graphics, but I'll get to that. And it is basically the story of amnesia and trauma. There's 4 different playable characters, and the story is something you really don't want to spoil because that's the main reason why you want to play these games. It relies on atmosphere, compelling storytelling, and really getting you into that spooky mindset. For those of you that have never played a Fatal Frame game before, the best way to describe this series is it's spooky and scary Pokemon Snap. What the hell do you mean? Well, you use an item called the Camera Obscura to take pictures of ghosts, and as these ghosts move in to attack you, when you take a fatal frame, when you take it at just the right time, you can deal damage to these specters and wraiths and revenants and drive them away, and basically you're using your Polaroid camera to hurt ghosts. And on the surface, it's actually really, really, really cool. And when this game is firing on all cylinders, it can be tremendously unsettling and jumpy and atmospheric. If you're playing this with the right set of 3D headphones, like the Pulse headphones, really, really, really good until it gets annoying. Allow me to explain what I mean. So if you've played one Fatal Frame game, you've pretty much played them all. But here, things feel different than Maiden of Blackwater. I actually went back and played a little bit of Maiden of Blackwater after playing this game for a few hours, and I got to thinking something feels weird, something doesn't feel right, and it comes down to character control. Something that I noticed: the characters in Lunar Eclipse move with 0 sense of urgency. Basically, you might as well be walking as opposed to running. You move maybe a couple frames faster. It's incredibly annoying. It's incredibly slow, and I don't know about you, but if I'm running from Casper and his buddies, I'd rather be booking it at full speed as to taking a leisurely jog through the park. It's a nitpick. Plus, even turning around was a bit of a trick here to get anything done, especially if there happens to be a group of these things coming at you, to get your Camera Obscura in the right place to deal damage. It was incredibly frustrating. And that's something that really bothered me about this. You do get an indicator on screen where the next ghost is going to pop up, being it left, right, center, or from the floor, or wherever. It becomes very, on the rails for a little bit, and almost unfair at times. I had times where I know I had a ghost caught in my camera, and it didn't deal any damage, yet he was able to grab me, and it was just annoying. Plus, there is this sound design that pervades the game when you're fighting these ghosts, and for the first few types of encounters, if you can deal with it quickly, it's pulse pounding, it's exciting. If that fight drags out, it gets downright annoying. I was playing this game late at night. I'm pretty sure I made my neighbors mad, just from the weird screeching, high-pitched whine of some of these attacks. And that's a real negative thing, is when the game is atmospheric and working, it's spooky. It's great, because Japanese horror has always hit a little bit different than North American. There's a reason why The Ring and all those type of movies are iconic classics, whereas here in North America, Jason, Freddy, and Ghostface are what we get. Yeah, we do have our spooky supernatural thrillers too, but let's be real here, we're more used to dealing with slasher villains as opposed to scary supernatural stuff outside of maybe James Wan's The Conjuring series. So it's a thing, and like I said, I liked Maiden of Blackwater better than I liked this game, and I figured because it was going to be this full HD re-release remaster, would look great. Now, that being said, character models and ghosts look awesome. Downright unsettling until they do this weird thing with their faces, and I know it's supposed to be scary, where oh, it's a dark reflection of yourself, and oh, it looks stupid at times. And I don't know, there's something when your face looks like a bad After Effects job that it takes me right out of it. The thing that really bothered me about this release, though, is how the textures looked on the environment. Everything else would look great until you're in the run-of-the-mill textures. Now, there was a great moment where there's this ghost pressed up against glass, and it's peeking in from the outside. That looked awesome, and I'll fully own that. but everything else leading up to this, it just seemed like the textures on the walls, like someone ran like a blur filter over it, and it just didn't quite look right. Now there is a digital upgrade to this game that gives you additional costumes and a digital art book, but it's pricey, like really, really pricey. And yet when you compare it against the Maiden of Blackwater, I know that game came out a while ago, it's about $10 to $15 cheaper to upgrade that version. And I just think Maiden of Blackwater is a better game than Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. So ultimately, can I recommend this game? At full retail, no. I don't think there's enough here to warrant that, because in terms of an HD remaster, you're only really getting some additional costumes, updated graphics, and the localization, but there is no dub. If this game had gotten a dub, better quality of life control options, and just little things that would make the game a little bit more fluid and more fun, maybe? But I don't know, just ultimately, I did not enjoy my time with Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. Maybe I'll try another Fatal Frame. Hell, maybe I'll go play through Maiden of Blackwater again. But ultimately, I didn't have the time that I expected with this. I'm glad we're getting more of these games, especially ones that were region locked. I think that's important for digital preservation. But I also think the effort could have been considerably done more here to really enhance an iconic series like this.
Go crazy?
Don't mind if I do!
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria!
Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, producer. Well, it's time to talk about the strange and unusual things that happened around the Big Blue Marble this past week. And well, we're going to start things off with an article from Business Insider. AI-generated DJs are coming to radio stations in the US and Canada next month. An AI radio DJ would be coming to your local radio station, or could be coming. Radio GPT, a GPT-4 powered radio content generator from media company Futari, is set to debut next month in radio stations in the US and Canada, Axios Cleveland reports. Powered by the same tech that Chat GPT draws upon, Radio GPT aims to man radio airtime spots with AI-generated scripts and voices, as well as tailored local news content. You can listen to a demo from the company, which you can go on the article and see if you want, that gives you a preview of what the AI DJ voices sound like, which is to tell listeners they are in fact fully AI, sprinkled between curated songs. The page includes snippets of Radio GPT generated voices presenting news, weather, and traffic updates. Anything a radio human can do, I can do better. One of the AI hosts can be heard saying in between songs. Every voice you hear is 100% AI. Another voice summarized an uplifting local news story before launching, but an example of a, quote, trending story appeared to suggest that the AI had somehow received early access confirmation about Apple's yet-to-be-announced iPhone 15 Pro. I got a sneak peek of the iPhone 15 Pro, the AI said, before mentioning an unconfirmed features, including its battery life. It looks like it's coming in September. That's the cool thing about us AI types. No need to charge. We just keep going, and going. It's likely that the AI was pulling from online reports or unconfirmed leaks from blogs covering the latest Apple rumors. The news that the AI technology is coming to real radio stations might make some existing radio DJs squirm and wonder if their jobs are now being at risk of being replaced. But Futari CEO and founder David Andelsteg told Axios that Radio GPT was designed to, quote, save radio and not compete with it. Quote, our research shows that 7 out of 10 air shifts around the world are already unmanned with generic production or voice tracking, he told Axios. What we're looking to do is augment a radio station's ability to fill the programming with more live and local content. The technology will launch mid-April at Alpha Media, which oversees more than 200 radio stations in the U.S., and Rogers Sports Media, which owns 55 stations and 29 podcasts in Canada, according to Axios. I don't like this. As someone who's done voice tracking,
say goodbye to your
live local content,
your entire industry, and also every college that has a radio program.
Basically, how a lot of this works, like certain radio stations in large markets, like your Bostons, your New Yorks, your LAs, your your Phillies, whatever, have live local 24/7 programming. Even in Toronto, there's usually somebody at the station.
Well, like Q107, Chum's gone. Isn't it just a talk radio like repeat thing now?
I'm not 100% sure, but I know AM 640, 680 News has somebody in the newsroom in case something happens. But
same with 570 News here. Like the Rogers, like the talk radio ones, because they break in if there's an emergency.
Yeah, like there's always at least one engineer, a producer, and somebody who can jump on the mic.
Actual 24-hour content. I don't even know if Q107 does anymore.
It's like rare in Canada. Exceptionally rare now.
Back when we were in high school, like even into the mid 2000s, when you were in college, like you still had. You might have gone into like in the period between like 1 a.m. and 4. There might be repeats or might be something else, but like we used to have late night programming till 1 or 2 in the morning, especially when like Chris Shepard was doing his nighttime shows, right? Like, and that would even be like a Saturday night. And then I noticed the big shift was like 2007, 2008. Almost all of our overnight stuff ended, and we stopped having new programming after like 9 or 10 at night.
Mm-hmm.
And then it went to being like no weekend cover. Like you'd have a weekend show for like 5 hours, and the rest of it was repeats from the week.
Yeah,
like it used to be, like you said, 24/7, including weekends.
Yeah, like the station that I used to listen to, and I still do occasionally, but because I used to like listening to the overnight shift, was WMMR 97.3 out of Philadelphia. They stopped doing live on-air shifts after midnight. Pretty much, I think Alex, you were here when that news broke.
Yeah, you were like almost like legit. You were almost crying.
Yeah, because I lost all my good DJ buddies.
Well, yeah, you said you weren't like. I was like, what's so upsetting? Like, it's just you said it's not that. It's I don't know if they're going to have jobs.
Yeah,
because you know how the industry works. They don't just automatically move them to another segment.
Yeah, like I know some of the afternoon people got shifted, and one of my buddies who was the overnight, he does the afternoons now, but some of my other friends who are like the overnight fill-ins, I haven't heard them in a while, and I even reached out to one of them on Twitter. I haven't heard from them in a bit, and it sucks because I used to like listening from midnight to 5 a.m. because I'd be up writing or doing something for the podcast, and they would keep me company, and there'd be times I could call into the station and be like, hey, I'd like to hear a request. And we'd end up talking on the phone for 5 or 10 minutes. And I made friends in a different city. And that's how I got into broadcast radio, was because of that live community content. Like how I got in the radio. I don't know if I've ever told this story. Once upon a time, there was a radio station in Owen Sound called AM 560. There still is. But they used to have this all request Saturday night. And it was 50s, 60s, and 70s music. And I would call in as a young boy between ages like 9 to 13. And I would talk to the on-air DJs, and they would tell me about music. They tell me about what radio was like. And I would develop a rapport with these DJs to know what community radio felt like. And you might say that's a little weird for a kid to talk to someone, but the fact that these people were so enthusiastic about their jobs to connect with a young member of the community, that's what encouraged me to look at broadcast as a career, because you are that connective tissue. And by not being live 24/7, I think that diminishes you as a station. Like when WMMR, they even had somebody there on Christmas Eve, live 24/7. And, you know, my friend Jackie Bam Bam would do the Santa Tracker program from 7 p.m. till midnight where, you know, where's Santa? But there'd be somebody in the overnight. They were there to keep you company.
Well, like I mentioned Q107, and that's sort of like, I think that was the last major popular station that did that kind of programming here. Mm-hmm. But if you remember growing up, the big one for Southern Ontario for a lot of this was CFNY, which was Toronto. You've probably heard the Rush song Spirit of Radio. Mm-hmm. And that was the slogan for the station. And they did 24-hour programming, and that's where a lot of bands would get discovered, because with CanCon, you know, how they have to fill so much Canadian content, or they had to, you know, during the day, a lot of them would cram it in the evening. So that if you wanted to listen to new Canadian rock, you had to listen like at nighttime. Or what's the other station in the States that was really popular for 24-hour radio?
K-Rock?
Yes, on the West Coast, and then I forget the New York one. The other big one was in Cleveland. I think they're still there. WMMS, Cleveland Rocks. Remember the how they had the theme song for the Drew Carey show?
Hmm.
Cleveland Rock. That's the station where Rush was discovered in the States, and a lot of Canadian bands they would do weird shit there. They're like, hey, we're gonna play a 9-minute song just because they could, back when they had the they had the ability to do so, and back when the DJ was the boss and not the music producer saying you have to play this to make it a top 40 hit. Back then, top 40 hits were made by the DJs. So, 24-hour radio was when that started to go, that's one thing. But now we're not even going to have think about all the radio personalities that we remember growing up that had nicknames and fun stuff. You're not going to have that anymore when it's all a robot.
Yeah, I get it for maybe generating new or for traffic and weather. Okay, I get that in maybe the overnight smaller markets, maybe, but in large stuff, I don't like the idea. And they're already talking about podcasts. And I know we have friends who work in radio who are exiting the industry are like, I don't like where this is going.
Because where a computer interviews the person. No way.
Yeah, I don't like it. My broadcast career, as I know it, is changing radically. Fortunately, I work for a print outlet, which is yet another dying industry.
Well, but it can't be. The day that a print outlet goes robot is the day the print outlet dies, because the point of print journalism is the journalist.
Yeah, you need that personality, and that's
can you remember? We've mentioned some radio hosts. You remember, a lot of them ended up making the transition to video hosts as well.
Mm-hmm.
Remember Tarzan Dan? He's still doing radio, I think, out in Alberta or something.
Yeah, Calgary, I think.
Yeah, and then my mom still mentions she when we talk about the radio, she's like, oh, we couldn't miss
Wolfman Jack.
No, see, Wolfman Jack, you couldn't pick him up here. You heard about him, but I don't think the radio, it was way too far. That was down Mexico to Texas, but you'd hear of him. But the big host here when she was growing up was on Chum, which Chum was such a big station that there, how you have the Billboard charts and everything, and the America Top 40 and all that. It was called the Chum Charts. That one radio station made the top 40 for Canada, the whole country, even if you couldn't pick up the station outside of the Toronto area. But the radio host she remembers was Jungle Jim Nelson.
Okay.
Yeah, and they would have Tarzan sounds in the background. This is in the early 60s, right? So that was unique and weird for the time. So you had these unique radio personalities, and we all think of them, and I think in the 90s and onward, where things shifted was it started becoming the teams of 2 or 3 people, and all those people were in the 40s or 50s. So I think where the problem is, you didn't have a lot of the young hot upstarts with unique personalities coming through on radio anymore, except maybe on the urban channels. The Beat here had a few people. But it's interesting that I don't know what a robot radio host would sound like. It can't be unique. It has to just be either a robot or it has to be a caricature or copy of somebody. You're never going to have the funny, witty person that can react on the fly.
I don't know. When you look at the experiments they had running on Twitch, where they had the Seinfeld as if it was written by an AI and all these other things, it's never going to sound like a real person. You'll just know. But it's interesting. I think the idea has potential if used properly. But when the entertainment industry is going to be taken over by, frankly, robots, I don't like it. And I don't just say that as podcasters, because you come here each week for the last 16 years to hear myself and whoever I'm joined with give personality.
I want to make a correction. It was Jungle J Nelson, not
Jungle
Jim.
J. Yeah, but there is like you can't mimic personality. Now AI can learn, but it's never going to have that spontaneity. It's never going to have those quirks. It's never going to have those snippets of life that truly are a person. And if you want to give something saying, hey guys, there's an accident on the QEW, or here it's going to rain on Tuesday. If you want to hand that to an AI, but have somebody deliver the news, fine. But I don't know. I don't like it. So moving on to our next story this week. This one I'm going to condense a little bit because I think you'll get the gist of it pretty quickly. This story comes courtesy of CNN.com. This woman left her AirPods on an airplane. She tracked them to an airport worker employee's home. We've had people track their bags when airlines can't find them. Now here's something new. A passenger tracking an item she left on a plane to an airport employee's home. Earlier in March, Elizabeth Hayden from Washington State in the U.S. was separated from her AirPods, Apple's pricey micro headphones. While disembarking from a plane in San Francisco, she swiftly realized they appeared to have been stolen, but after nearly 2 weeks, she had them back thanks to her tenacious tracking abilities. Hayden was flying back from a trip to Tokyo to visit her husband, who was on deployment in the military when she parted with the headphones. Disembarking from the plane at San Francisco International Airport and a little disoriented after a 9-hour flight from Tokyo, she left her denim jacket on the seat at the back of the plane. I realized before I was even off the plane, I was third from the last off the plane, so I asked the flight attendant if I could go and get it. He said no. I was required by federal law to get off the plane and stand beside it where the strollers are brought to. I was tired. He said he'd bring it to me. I said okay. He did indeed bring it to her, and she boarded her next flight to Seattle. A child was screaming next to me, and I thought, at least I have my AirPods. She remembers. She reached for her jacket. She left in the two breast pockets buttoned up, one with her earphones and one with some Japanese yen inside. The pockets were open and the AirPods were gone. The plane had already taken off for Seattle, but Hayden used in-flight Wi-Fi to track the earphones using the Find My app, which tracks Apple devices. The AirPods were showing at SF0. Then she realized they were moving. I'm a diligent person. I tracked the whole way from San Francisco to Seattle, taking screenshots the entire time. I live an hour from Seattle, and once I got home, I was still taking screenshots, she said. The AirPods were now showing up at a place on the map called United Cargo, still within the airport, but the cargo side of the airplane, so not where a passenger would likely to be. They then moved to Terminal 2, then Terminal 3, and then they were on Highway 101 heading south towards San Mateo. They ended up at what appeared to be a residential address in the Bay Area and stayed put there for 3 days. Of course, everyone's gadgets are precious, but Hayden's AirPods hold particular significance. They're her link to her husband, who calls her from his deployment on such a bad line. She needs them to hear him. From the minute she realized they were gone, Hayden was trying to get them back. She messaged United SFO from the plane. She then tried the police in San Francisco, Hayward, where the tracker was showing the SFO's own airport police. She worked out the email format for United employees' emails and, quote, blasted every single executive she could find across the globe. I hit every avenue I could find, used every possible form of communication, and got the same response. I'm sorry that happened to you, she says. In the meantime, she says she marked the earpods as lost on the app so that anyone who used them would hear a message telling them that they were hers and giving them her phone number. United, she says, they were, quote, god-awful in their communications with her. First, they were like, I'm sorry you lost your things on our flight. And I was like, I didn't lose them. I was denied the ability to get my jacket by an employee, and now my $250 AirPods are missing. The person who helped, a detective from the San Mateo police force, who was working at the airport. He matched the address to the employees were pinging from an address for an employee of the airport, a contractor who was working to load food onto the aircraft. United would later clarify to Hayden in an email they were not a United employee but a vendor. She says now, I can't make any assumptions, but what I know is that they were in my pocket when I got up. I wasn't allowed back to my seat, and by the time the steward brought the jacket to me, they weren't there. And when I tracked them, they were at an employee's house. United confirmed to CNN that the employee works for a United vendor and that the matter has been handed over to law enforcement. In an added statement, United Airlines holds our vendors to the highest standards, and we are working with local authorities in their investigation. And then the article just kind of goes on.
And that's why they use vendors, because they don't want to have to actually care and have any liability for anything they do.
Yeah, like I've lost my AirPods once, and that Find Me app was invaluable. Yeah, like that's fucking horrible that they tracked it to somebody's house. And the fact that she had to wait 2 weeks, like, guys, I know where they are. They didn't just walk there or teleport by themselves. Do something, asshole.
There's going to have to be laws that change for certain items that are trackable.
Yeah, like it's ridiculous. It's just,
and Buddy, not only should he lose his job or her job, they should be doing some time, because it's pretty clear it's not just magically ended up in their home.
Yeah, like it's fraud. No, it's fraud.
It's full on theft. Yeah.
Yeah, like it's just something that you don't do. It is
and these aren't these aren't $10 items.
Yeah, and like you said, like it's a fully trackable item. Now, a laptop, it's a little harder to do that, but Apple devices, if they get lost, you can track them within a few meters of where they end up. So I'm so angry for this woman. It makes me sick, because like if this is her line to her husband, that's an important item.
And Michael, and that's not even as bad as, I don't know, Air Canada treating wheelchairs.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's ended up in the papers recently. I'm just going to kind of summarize it. Basically, long story short, Air Canada says, "Oh, we can't stow your wheelchair in this cabinet," and the person presented the laws and them says, "Well, actually, you can." And then the employee got
not only you can, you are compelled and must, and then they're still denied.
Yeah, so if you want to read more about it, you can find the articles on this. It's frankly fucked up.
And the only reason they're getting away with this is there's only 2 airlines for Canada, the entire country.
Yeah, you got WestJet and Air Canada and some of the smaller regionals. But if you're
the smaller regionals are getting absorbed because they're inept at actually running them. We saw, what was it? Is it Sunwing is completely dying? And Flair has been fighting for
and Porter.
Yeah, they're like to the point where it's like there's only 2 companies, and the government isn't actually enforcing any of their laws.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's sickening. There's a lot more to talk about it, but it is what it is. So anyway, guys,
ask one of the people that's been waiting for their refund for 2 years.
Yeah. Have fun with that. So, guys, I would love to continue talking more about the weird news. I am going to cut the show short a little bit this week because there's something's come up. Alex will laugh at me after the podcast. You can probably guess what it is, folks. The magic of radio. So we will be back, guys, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I've been Mike the Birdman. He's Alex, the producer. We'll be back, guys, right after this.
Do you have any hobbies?
I collect spores, molds, and fungus.
Hold that thought. It's crapper time.
Just a quickie review here, and our friends over at Koei Tecmo sent a review copy of Atelier Ryza 3, Alchemist of the End and the Secret Key. We've checked out the previous 2 games in this franchise, the larger franchise of Atelier as a whole. We've had multiple reviews, I think, for some of the other previous trilogies that have had remasters. But Ryza's sort of been the one that broke into the mainstream, or more mainstream, if not, not at like top tier, widespread JRPG level yet, but this is what's been approaching it. And the only thing I would say holding this back from really taking the West by storm is they still don't have an English dub. And I don't get it. In a world where we need localization, they just don't have it. And the characters talk rather fast, and you have to sort of keep up with the subtitles. but I found myself skipping a lot of it and just enjoying the gameplay for the most part. Now, if you've played or heard our reviews of Atelier Ryza 1 and 2, they have a pretty good battle system, turn-based, but at the same time, pretty dynamic camera angles. And then a lot of the game is, missions where you need to create certain items, and the idea is you go out into the field and beat up monsters and find and forage for items that you find on the field that you take back to then make items, and then also better quality items of each, which then give you maybe better outcomes, or sometimes you need to have a certain amount of good certain types of items at a certain level to then pass off to the next part of the story. And again, I started with the first Ryza game. Gone is the timed element that you had to always keep in mind. That was the big thing that everybody loved that Ryza dropped, and that's gone here. Now, story-wise, this is, you've got the friends that you've made in the first two games on a third summer adventure. Here's a bit of just a brief synopsis here. So after the events of Atelier Ryza 2, the latest summer escapades find Ryza and her friends enjoying their peaceful lives on Kirkin Island when they hear news that a mysterious group of islands have appeared in nearby waters. It turns out that these islands, known as Kark Isles, are having a negative effect on their homeland. So Ryza and her friends set out to investigate, but their investigation leads to an enormous gate deep within the strange ruins. Ryza hears a haunting voice in her head, wants to lead her to the code of the universe. Who is talking to her at what lies beyond the gate? We'll have to find out. So yeah, there is to be honest, a more interesting story here than in the first two. It still follows a similar formula. Battle system has been refined. I find it runs smoother. Load times are less. I played both the PS4 version initially for a little bit just to see how it would feel on the PS5, and then imported the save into the PS5 version. Load times are reduced pretty well overall between the two. Like, there wasn't like super long on the PS4 version, but it's, load times are reduced. The PS5 version is 5 gigabytes larger to accommodate some of the larger textures. Graphically, playing it on the PS4 version looks pretty good. Looks what you'd expect from a JRPG on the PS4. The PS5 version just removes a lot of the aliasing that happens because it's at, larger assets, and the draw distance is a little more when you're on the field. Music wise, it sounds pretty solid. There's some catchy tunes in there. Voice acting, it's all in Japanese. I'm not a fan. I've been saying this for years, not just with this series, with others. You need to have an English localized dub if you want to be taken seriously in the West now. And it's not a xenophobic thing. It's not anything like that. It's just, for a game that's this polished and this professional in every other aspect, it kind of needs to have it. Because, and I'll say this, the only negative I have to say on this game in particular is their lack of accessibility options. There's an option to turn subtitles on, but you don't have any control of how big they are, and they are tiny. Way too small. I'm playing it on a 50-inch TV mounted on the wall about 7 feet away, and I'm having a very hard time seeing it on a 4K TV. To the point where I'm just not paying attention to the dialogue in most cases. Most other games now, if you don't have an English dub, will give you the option to take the subtitles and double their size or even triple their size. And there's nothing like that here. So it's actually kind of hard to see what's going on. Now, this might be a different story if you're playing it on like the Nintendo Switch or something, where you're playing it, right up close to your face in portable mode. But playing it on the PlayStation on a large TV at a decent distance away, it's kind of hard to follow what's going on. You have to be very attentive. So that's a big negative from me. This is something that a lot of JRPGs, but not just that, a lot of Japanese developers still haven't jumped on board to having the ability to increase the subtitle size. It doesn't really cost them any screen space or anything. I don't know why it's not a feature. I went scrolling through multiple menus trying to find it. I'm like, there's nothing here but turning it on or off as is. At least that's there, because the game would be unplayable without it. But that's my big complaint, is the accessibility options are kind of lacking. And no option to have like opaque or different colored text or anything for the subtitles. But outside of that, the game is charming. It's fun. If you've liked the previous ones in the series, you'll like this probably even more because the story, as I said, is a better, more interesting narrative. Worth playing. I'm wondering if, somebody might go out there and buy all three. It's a good trilogy to have. As it stands, can you play it on its own without playing the previous games? Yes, there's a recap. There's ability to skip dialogue if you need to, if you're finding it too hard to follow. You can jump right into battle. The tutorial at the beginning is pretty easy to follow, so you don't have to be somebody who's played the previous two games to get into this. You can start here and have a perfectly viable, fun experience.
Those magnificent bastards. Color me kooky, but something very odd is going on around here.
You're not allowed to talk anymore.
All right, guys. Well, welcome back to ThisWeekInGeek.net. I'm Mike the Birdman. He's the actual producer. And don't you love it when about 5 delivery people show up to your door at the same time? Magic of radio. Isn't it cool?
I have had that happen. I've actually had it, dude, where I had a knock and I'm like, that's a loud knock. That must be one of the delivery people that knows me, that knows that I can't hear it unless it's a loud knock. And I get to the door and there's been the mail carrier, the UPS person, and the FedEx person, and they're all standing there talking, chilling. They're like, oh, so you got a package for him? You got a package for him? And I'm like, yeah. And they're all trying to figure out, not what they've given me, like why they have all the deliveries. And I've had to be like, oh, I do podcasting and we get items for review from the media. And like the mail carrier had figured it out earlier, but hadn't really said anything. They're like, the dawning on them, like, oh, that's why. Because they're like, there's not that many types of people that get this many deliveries, and it's not like a lot, but remember, like before the pandemic, 2018, 2019, we were getting a fair bit physical still.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like even games and stuff, like before everything went digital for everything for obvious reasons, and we were getting stuff like, especially come gift guide time, like October to November, it was normal that in a week we would probably get 7 to 10 packages, sometimes on the same day. And they're looking at each other like, oh, and they're like, there's only a couple types of people that get that many packages. And like, one, rich people. And I start laughing. I'm like, not in this apartment. And they start laughing. They're like, yeah, we figured that. And I was like, all right. 2, and then they said, people that do like we do, influencers or media review, that sort of stuff, journalists. And he said, or 3, drug dealers. And they're like, the packages are odd sizes. It's not drugs. I was like, no, don't you see the package that says Paramount Canada? They're like, oh.
My favorite courier story is one time I accidentally dropped my pants in front of the mailman because I wasn't wearing a belt and my jeans fell down. I was wearing boxers. But the other time...
When was this?
I think I was living in Shelburne at the time.
So everybody knows everybody. So that probably spread real quick.
Yeah, that's when they stopped bringing packages down the stairs and just leave them at the top. So that was annoying. Then my first experience, this was way back when I was in college. So if you remember the size of the Rock Band complete drum, the complete band packages,
the refrigerator boxes.
Yeah, they pulled up 4 of those up to my house, and I had people on the street just staring at me like, "What are you doing?" It's a video game.
Because it looks like furniture delivery.
Yeah, and then the other one is when I was doing stuff with Playmates Toys in Shelburne. I had them bring a giant refrigerator box of all the TMNT toys, and at that time I had FedEx, UPS, Purelator, and regular Canada Post because they were at the house usually once or twice a day. Me and Blair got them Christmas cards and like a Tim's card, like, thank you for crossing this really treacherous sidewalk during the winter. I appreciate you.
For everyone except DHL, they can go screw themselves.
I've never had a good experience with DHL.
I'm not trying to be mean. I've had some DHL stuff drop off when we've received the stuff from Circuit Mess. The cool STEM kits where they put together like the little robots and like the walkie-talkies and all that. That's the only time. The 2 packages from them have been DHL. That's the only time ever that I've received either good customer service and good packaging that wasn't damaged. That's the only 2 times ever. Every time I got DHL from any other reason, it's always been damaged. And it's like, again, that's my experience, not everybody's, but you hear jokes like DHL is like no, and it's like, oh man, you had to get it through DHL.
And they're the only company that ever seems to want to charge you import fees.
Them and Pure Later, even though they're Canadian, like they're a pain to even have them drop it off at your door. I had to go in to see them and get like a sticker that you put on your door where you like a digital signature thing where you sign for it, and it's like, and if you put that on your door, it means we can drop it off. And then they're like, we don't do it for apartments. I'm like, it's not an apartment the way you think. It's not an apartment where it's like keyed entry, you know, like super secured entry with like 50 stories and there's everybody around. It's an apartment building with 14 units, and the bottom floor unit that I'm in, I'm the only person on that side of the building. You have to enter a few doors to get there. And I'm right down the stairs from where the mailboxes are, and they can just put it right in front of my door.
Yeah.
And when I told them that and I explained the situation, they're like, oh, we can't do this. And then one of the Pure Later drivers was there at the office or at the, you know, the center. And he goes, wait, that address? He goes, I know your apartment. Yeah, we can totally do that. Yeah, we can verify. And they're like, okay, as long as you're willing to sign this, you know, like a waiver thing. And the guy's like, I can put it underneath the stairs. I know exactly where your place is. And it's like, yes, thank you, driver who knows, you know, it's an older apartment where that's feasible. If I was in a bigger, newer apartment or like somewhere, you know, where I get
kind of like mine, right?
Yeah, if I was somewhere where there's a lot of foot traffic, you know, that's not acceptable, obviously. But like, you've driven to my place, it's dead end. Like the worst thing we had was we had homeless people trying to sleep downstairs the one time, and that was like 5 years ago. That was before all the tents and all the stuff was built up everywhere else. We haven't had any problems since. But like, literally, like people have delivered packages to my door when I haven't been there. Like I've been at my mom's or whatever for Christmas or something, and something came, you know, during the week after, and let's say there's nobody home at all. And I've come home to a note on my door from my neighbor saying, I've got your packages up here, Alex. We didn't want to leave them out. And it's like, that's the kind of neighbors I got in this place, right? We all sort of keep an eye out. Like, you know, we don't, because you always want, like, there's kids here that have like bicycles and that they don't want to get stolen. So everybody keeps their eyes out, right? So that's when you get that situation, it's one thing. But like, I haven't had any really bad experiences outside of DHL.
Yeah, like I've had some really, really, really good people deliver for me. I've also had some bad ones, but that's a story for a different day.
Like, and you know the good ones. Like I always leave in the, you know, the apartment building mailbox. I always leave a this year I didn't because I wasn't here, but I usually leave like a Timmy's card in there for Christmas for the mail carrier. And then usually if I usually have like, I'll buy like 4 or 5 different Timmy's cards, and whenever I get a knock at the door, if I'm here to actually answer it right around Christmas, like the week before, I always try to hand one out to one of them. Even like the if I get like an Uber Eats or I get like a DoorDash driver dropping off food, like right around Christmas or right beforehand, I'll tape a little Christmas card with it in there right onto the door. Here's your tip.
Yeah.
And same with taxi drivers. Like when I go to my mom's for Christmas, if I'm taking a taxi over there, better believe they're getting the Timmy's card.
Oh yeah, like I always make sure to tip people, and especially in the pandemic years, you rely on these services more and more. So so anyway, guys, we got stuff coming up on the site. I know we have some delayed stuff that's just been a little while in our queue, but don't worry, it's been done and edited for weeks. It is coming out this week. Some
of it's evergreen, some of it's like you're going to be hearing some Star Trek stuff a week or two after when we intended, but it's only because that's when it fits.
Yeah. So we do have a really long forum discussion on Star Trek Picard. We've got, I know I've been talking about that disability romance thing for a while. Alex does have it scheduled.
That is out this week for sure on Wednesday.
I'm trying to think of what else we got coming up. I know
we got the loose cannon on Nightmare Beach.
Yep, we got that coming out. We are rescheduling our conversation with Enrique Couto about talking about Theodore Rex and Prehysteria. I just need to get through some school stuff.
You did school. Now. I'm doing the OMA respite stuff this week. So, you know, the middle of the week is off limits for me to record with you guys. If it ends up being crazy for all of us and it works better for you, you know, you can feel free to record with him, if you know, and I can always hop on another one once we have him on, because I have a feeling we're going to have him on more than once, right? Because you said he's a cool guy, right?
Yeah, fun person. And I think I'll probably talk to his co-host David Denoyer just to talk about movies.
Wait,
And stuff.
he's got a double D as well?
He does have a double D. Call him Louie and see how well that goes for you.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he's going to hurt me. I'm going to message him after.
So when Double D comes back to Canada, are you saying that we have to have a Double D down?
Yes, it's going to be like that
a double
movie, The One.
A Double D throwdown, and it's not the video you think.
Exactly. It's going to be amazing. So anyway, guys, we got, like I said, fantastic stuff coming up. I will be appearing at GriffCon, which is going to be happening here in Guelph. Again, I will be running the Renegade Game Studios Transformers, the RPG. I will be running that for 3 whole days.
For those that don't know, is GriffCon, I'm going to assume, is that like Guelph Griffins?
Yes.
So that's the college team, right?
Yes, I'm actually going to get the information for GriffCon so I can promote this just a little bit more.
So while you pull it up, I assume that's a university fan convention they're running?
I think so. It's basically
like for school spirit and stuff?
No, it's a tabletop convention.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, I just got to find it here on Facebook. It's being stupid, so just give me 30 seconds.
But yeah, because I think that's their mascot, right? The Griffins.
Yeah,
I think it's like how what is it? Is it Waterloo? Is it Titans?
Something like that. So anyway,
Laurier has something, and Waterloo I think has the Titans. If I'm wrong, I have a bunch of friends that are alumni, and they're going to be mad at me.
So if you want to find out more about GriffCon, it runs April 14th to the 16th at the University of Guelph. It is Guelph's gaming convention, so that's RPG, board games, card, miniature war gamings, and more. If you want to find out more information, that's griffcon.org. Everyone is welcome. I will be running games on all 3 days. Friday evening, Saturday afternoon, and Sunday afternoon or evening. I'm not sure. Either way, it's going to be a 3-part adventure. You're going to create some Autobots. We're going to take part in one of the most important parts of Transformers history. Don't want to say too much more about it. It should be a good time.
And the best part is you don't have to record it, so you can just relax and have fun.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of fun. And speaking of Transformers, we will be running that as our summer game later on this year. We're going to probably record that in June. That is the idea. And then Alex will be taking us through the universe of the Morphing Grid and Power Rangers at some point this spring. And that'll be a short form adventure. And
I have received a message from the Brindlewood Bay people. That's the Granny, the Golden Girls style RPG. They're getting ready to go to the printer in April. They just need a credit card information for shipping. I'm kind of miffed in that it said it was going to include shipping. But I got to remember that a lot of times Kickstarters will say that, and then they don't account for international orders.
It's true. Happens all the time.
So it's going to be $30 for shipping. So all I have to do is, once a month rolls around and I make sure I've made my credit card payment, I'll just put a credit card on there and have it shipped. Because I'm just like, I paid $90. It said it was included. And their response was, oh, sorry, you're in Canada. And it's like, and it said included shipping. It doesn't say anything about what country. But that's the biggest mistake that Kickstarter people make, is they don't realize that it's international, right? Which, again, I don't mind. So that means that that's something that should be rolling out to us by April or May at some point. And that'll be fun to play at some point during the year. I just want to make some of the recipes from the cookbook that it comes with.
Yeah, so we will have some RPG content cooking up this spring and potentially an announcement. We'll wait and see what happens with that. I'm not going to see too much more beyond that. So anyway, guys, thank you for joining us here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. And depending on when the show comes out, if you haven't downloaded stuff from the Wii U store or the 3DS, please do so.
You will still be able to re-download everything you've purchased, at least for now, but you won't be able to make any new purchases, as that feature will have gone away.
Yeah, so get on it, boys. All right, guys, so until next time, for ThisWeekInGeek.net, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying, and until next time, folks, be excellent to each other. We'll catch you guys again next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought.
Thanks for listening to this episode of This Week in Geek. Hungry for more? Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net. You can subscribe to the podcast, browse our Twitter and Instagram, and leave your thoughts on today's topics. If you'd like to give us some feedback, send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. Tune in next time, and remember,
Lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Thank you for your cooperation. Good night.